Good morning, and thanks for joining us for another Tuesday morning Breakfast with Bill. We're glad to be here. Matt, good morning and welcome back.
Morning.
Matt and I didn't even plan on wearing sport coats today, so it's for some reason we both went sport coat Tuesday. Nice little
big day of selling.
Oh, there you go. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Speaking of selling and our interactions with others, I don't know if we were, but I thought that was a good segue. Today we're going to talk a little bit about that emotional intelligence that some people bring to the relationship and how we see some salespeople that have just that natural ability to connect with other people and understand other people. And so often when Matt and I work with a client, they're like, hey, can you teach that to my team? Can you teach them how to just be more natural with people? Like, no, we can't, because oftentimes we're dealing with somebody that might be 30, 40 years old, and this is the way they've gone about life for the past 30 or 40 years. We can't transform them into being naturally likable or able to connect with other people. But we have some tips on how you might be able to get a little better at developing some of those skills. And I think it begins with where your orientation is, and we talk about having a self-orientation where I worry more about what's happening with me and my needs and getting my needs met, or an others orientation, right? And Matt and I were talking this morning as we prepped for the show, and he said, I don't know, I feel like we could just share some random thoughts. And I said, this reminds me of Deep Thoughts from Jack Handey. And Matt had no idea what that was because he's of a generation that didn't see that on Saturday Night Live, I guess. And I played a couple Jack Handey little episodes for him. And ironically, we stumbled upon one that very well illustrated, I think, very clearly illustrated a self-orientation versus an others orientation. You remember that?
The two bags in a hand, or
yeah, and it was one of these. If you recall, on Saturday Night Live when they used to have Deep Thoughts with Jack Handey, he said, "I believe people should always carry around 2 sacks. This way, if anybody ever asks you for help, you could say, I can help you because I have these 2 sacks." And that's clearly having a self-orientation.
And he was laughing, and I was saying, "That's it."
Yeah.
Wait, what is that? But you said something important earlier. Natural. I think it was last episode. It struck a chord with some, and actually created conversation in a few team sales meetings that I was in. The art of being natural and the art of being authentic when you're on the phone or when you're in person. You made the comment of, it was only your mid-30s or late 30s that you finally owned who you were and the style and the boldness, really, that you ask, and the directness of questioning. So how important is that to be natural when you're on the phone, and how will that increase your success when you're not trying to be someone else? You're not trying to maybe hide an accent or talk differently. How can that affect sales?
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because one of the first things I realized was when I wanted to become more or be more was, how do I speak? And, Matt and I are in Pittsburgh. There's a term for Pittsburghers called yinzers, because here in Pittsburgh, instead of saying you all, y'all, you guys, we might say yins, right? So we're called yinzers. And I think I spoke with a heavy Pittsburgh dialect when I was younger. And one of the things I wanted to do was become a little more polished with that and get rid of that dialect, but be true to who I was. And I think that, Matt and I preach 2 words. If you really want to be all you can be and be the best version of yourself, it takes 2 things. It takes being authentic and being vulnerable. Because I think it's very difficult to be authentic if you're not vulnerable. Those 2 go together, right? We have to be able to recognize we're able to share a little bit about who we are, be open about who we are. We don't have to fake it. We don't have to pretend. But if we're vulnerable about our weaknesses, I think it helps us open up to our strengths more too.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with trying to speak clearer. We talked a lot about filler language and language that buys us time in a thought. So there's nothing wrong with improving that to be crisper, clearer. However, I think there's a great deal of success that can come with truly being authentic.
There's no substitute for being authentic.
And we team sell, or at least we did a lot early on. and I found myself like trying to be Bill a little bit. Like he has people laughing, and that's just not necessarily me. But it was only when probably a few years into it that I just started being myself a little bit more and having the confidence that my style's different. We have the same process, and we follow the process. We might get there a little bit different, and I might sometimes take a right and you take a left, but it freed myself to just be who I am, and I don't have to dominate the call. I don't have to try to talk more or try to talk less. It was really freeing. So for anybody out there that does do team selling or is grappling a little bit, and I know a few people directly that talked about it last week, just be yourself. It's
so freeing.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So being yourself is really, really powerful. And don't want to derail you, but this is another question that came up. People always talk about mirroring
The other.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? We're talking about authenticity, being yourself. Now, mirroring. I like to mirror the person. I walk into the room and I mirror them, or I'm on the call, so I mirror them, their speed or how they're speaking. What are your thoughts on that?
And there's a lot of guidance out there on mirroring that says that's one of the best ways to connect with another. Sure. I mean, we have to be, I think, cognizant. Remember, we go back to our foundation all the time, our baseline root phrase. Sales is something we do for somebody, not to somebody. So if that is the intent, that we're trying to make life easier on the other and to adjust to the other, okay, but what's that mean? I think that if we're doing it in an authentic manner, and you talk about different styles. Well, my style is very fast-paced. I speak quickly. I speak intensely. I'm upbeat typically when I become passionate, and that can be overwhelming for some styles. So when I'm selling, and by the way, in the world of disc, I'm a high D, high I. So when I'm selling to people that might be a higher S, so a little more slow-paced, and they need time to process, and they might not match my intensity, I need to be mindful of that, and for their sake, dial that down a bit. Now, I don't become someone different than who I am. I don't dial down the authenticity. I don't dial down the vulnerability, but I might dial down my pace. I might dial down the intensity of my voice, the intensity of my speech, maybe the intensity of my directness, but it's because of the other. I want to put them in a position. I want to speak in a manner. I want to behave in a manner that makes it easier for them to absorb. So if that's what we're talking about with mirroring, that's fine. But if we start trying to become inauthentic, if we start trying to become too much like the other, we're never going to be successful. Now, being mindful of our behavior and being mindful of its impact on others is actually the definition of emotional intelligence, right? So the definition of emotional intelligence, the definition we like to use, Matt and I, is really there's three components. It's being aware of your own behavior, being aware of its impact on others, and caring enough to do something about it. So if I know that my style is intense for somebody, it might be too much for somebody. Or there's those individuals out there that I'm not intense enough for, that I might have too much storytelling, and I don't get to the point directly enough because they're even a higher D than I am. I need to be mindful of that because I'm not going to be effective in communicating with them. And I know that when I start seeing eyes go somewhere else. So if I'm telling a story to somebody, or I'm in the midst of a sales call or coaching call, and I see that I'm losing somebody because their eyes are going somewhere else, it becomes important for me to immediately throw it back to them with a question.
And there are a lot of stories, trust me.
Some of them are longer than others.
Yeah, and I've heard them all multiple times. I think the mirroring is a fine line, though. Excuse me. It's all about being authentic, and I'd much rather rely on a sales process
Correct.
than something that might be that fine line of a gimmick, because you can lose yourself paying more attention to that. And what authenticity does for me, it allows me to listen and to really be in the moment and not.
And you mean you being authentic to who you are?
Correct. So it frees up my mind space and my mind share to listen and to be in the moment, because I think that is far more important than anything that we're going to try to do to maneuver, which starts becoming manipulative. How hard is it to listen and to sell, excuse me, if you're like, all right, so what do I have to be like, or what do I have to do next? It's taking away and detracting from why you're really there, and being able to ultimately listen.
It's too hard to be someone else. Look, I mean, I'm raising teenagers, and they're on the back end of their teen years. And what I've learned painfully is that sometimes it's hard to be us when you're trying to learn who you are, right? And I think so many of us are still trying to learn who we are, no matter how long we've been at this, no matter what our age is. Some of us aren't very comfortable with who we are, and we're trying to learn who we are. Well, if that's tough, how much more difficult is it to try to be someone else while we're trying to be us, so that we can please someone else? No, the anchor into who you are, embrace who you are. You were built for greatness. You were built beautifully. You were built perfectly. Yeah, we all make mistakes. Yeah, we're all flawed. Yeah, we're all broken. But you have greatness inside of you. Embrace who you are. Embrace that gifting that you have and go use it. Just be natural, be you, be authentic, be vulnerable, and you're going to be much more successful than if you try to put on someone else's mask and be them. I think for those who understand the impact of their behavior on others, those that understand their behavior then understand the impact of it on others, and those that care enough to do something about it, that have this higher level of emotional intelligence, you, if that describes you, you have the foundation for greatness in sales. You have that foundation to be very successful in this profession that you've chosen. If you couple hard work and persistency with that emotional intelligence, oh man, look out, Loretta, bar to door, here we come. We can be incredibly successful. And when Matt and I see people that are the highest achievers, when they're the people that achieve better than anyone else over time, it's usually those people that have that emotional intelligence coupled with the work ethic and the persistency that have the greatest results.
Well, I'll put some stats to that.
Okay.
With what you just said, this comes from LinkedIn. Not sure where they got this number, but EQ is responsible for 58% of professional success.
Absolutely.
Over half. And it might even be low from all the reading that I've done on EQ.
But that's overall. That's
Correct.
Professional success across all professions. If you apply that to sales, it's even greater, right? Because, I mean, we're taking into account even like software engineers. No offense to the software engineers out there, but even software engineers with a higher level of emotional intelligence grow faster and succeed. Oftentimes, the people that are leading the teams aren't the people that were the best engineers, but the people that understand people the best.
Ready for this one? A 40-year study. Wow, I mean, that's a long study.
Older than you.
Yeah, that's right. UC Berkeley found that EQ was 400% more powerful than IQ when predicting success in a field. Not sales, just in any field, which again, what you said just applied. 400%. 90% of top performers score high on emotional intelligence. Just 20% of low performers score high on emotional intelligence, and that was tied to sales. So 90% of the top performers have a high watermark. I'm not sure where that mark is, but I like the stat of 90% in there. And Pepsi did an internal study revealing that managers with highly developed EQ skills outperformed yearly revenue targets by 15 to 20%. Just measuring EQ.
Yeah.
So it's important.
It's critical. And in this profession that we've all chosen, this profession of sales, or this profession that chose us, EQ is enormously impactful in our success. And then if you couple hard work with that, if you couple persistence that says, I'm going to stick to the process, I'm going to stick to following up, I'm going to stick to the making promises and delivering them, you can't help but be successful. And it's the reason EQ is so predictive of our success and so impactful to our success is because no matter how much we become automated, no matter how much we move to Zoom or Teams or a virtual world, we still need to connect with people. This is still a belly-to-belly sport. Selling is still a belly-to-belly sport. Now, our bellies might be pressed against our desk as we're on team calls more, but understanding how people are relating to us and understanding people's needs, as Zig Ziglar pointed out many years ago, we can have anything we want in this world if we help enough other people get what they want, right? That's what we do. That's what we do as salespeople. We connect people to the possible. We connect people to solutions. And if we understand how to do that well enough, we understand how to connect with people. And if we're authentic, we're going to have that success that we're seeking.
So how do we grow EQ? That's what comes to mind for me. It's an elusive topic for some, especially those that don't have it, which may never have it. But for those individuals that might have two of the three or one of the three, how do we grow it? Because it is so important in sales, and it, in a way, that authenticity, that EQ, I feel like can get us out of what a lot of salespeople think is a jam. Yeah. In many ways, reading. I think of someone that's cold calling and being persistent, following up. And the worst thing that many salespeople are afraid of is, oh, you keep calling me. And so us just blowing through with a script in that moment is going to turn them off and probably be done forever. Whereas having a little EQ there and understanding the situation, understanding how that might impact them, I'm sorry if you feel that way, but we really want to win your work.
Yep. And this is what makes Matt the best sidekick in the business, like better than Ed McMahon, is Matt just teased what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks, is how do we grow our emotional intelligence? It's great to be aware of it, but then how do we grow it? And over the next few weeks, we're going to dive into some very practical exercises that we use with clients and our executive coaching side of our business, where we're trying to grow their emotional intelligence, and we'll share those with you. To Matt's point, this fear of persistence or this embracing of persistence at all costs really becomes a self-limiting belief on either side. We have people that are afraid to be persistent. We have people that are afraid to ask difficult questions. And a quick story, because Matt loves my stories. But yesterday we were interviewing a sales candidate. Wonderful woman. We liked everything about her. And at the very end of the interview, I said, oh, thanks for your time. And, we'll be in touch with you in the weeks ahead or in the days ahead about next steps. And she said, okay, thank you. And I shared with her, we're going to reach out to Bob, who's on our client side, and share our thoughts on today with Bob. She said, okay, great, thank you. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, why didn't you ask me what I'm going to share with Bob? Or why didn't you close me in any way and say, well, how do you think today went? Or is that feedback you give to Bob going to be positive? And I said, and she said, well, I didn't want to interrupt the process. I figured I'd find out eventually. And it was her kindness, right? Her commitment to being kind, which is very good and very important. And I'm not dismissing that in any way or diminishing the importance of that. But it got in the way of her asking a very important question that might have closed the deal for her, in this case, a job. And I told her, I said, well, what if, though, while you have me on the phone, you would have said, out of curiosity, what are you going to share with Bob? Or you said you're going to share this information with Bob. I'd love to know what that feedback's going to sound like. And I told her, if I were to say something that was a concern of mine, if I were to tell her, hey, yeah, I'm going to tell Bob I liked you a lot, but I'm concerned about this, I said, you have an opportunity in this moment to address it. Where if you don't know what it is, I could go off and now it becomes me and Bob's shared belief that you're weak in this area, but we might have failed to pull it out from you. And we didn't give you an opportunity to share. And she said, okay, I could see that. You're right. That would have been a better approach. So she taught me she's coachable in that moment, right? But if we believe sales is something we do for somebody and not to somebody, we owe it to the other to learn as much as we can. We owe it to the other to understand where we are in the process, what we've done well, what we've shared with them they like, and where the gaps are. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't be afraid to be persistent, because we see opportunities all the time that are lost because somebody didn't follow up and be persistent. And there's reasons for people not getting back to you. I think, briefly and at a high level, it's either they're not ready. It's not always no, right? If somebody's not getting back to you, it's not always no. And a worse mindset and self-limiting belief is it's not yes, right? Too often when salespeople don't follow up, it's because they think, oh, we got this one in the bag. They're going to call me when they're ready.
We got a verbal.
Right. Yeah. Or they'll call me at the end of the month. No, it's because it's either fallen off their radar, they're not ready yet, or they need more information. And oftentimes they're just busy running their business. So if you follow up with them, you give them the opportunity to say yes that they might be waiting on. And you capture opportunities.
One more stat for the day: 80% of sales are made after the fifth touch.
Yeah. And how many people make the fifth call? Less than probably 20%.
Don't have that stat, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah. So, all right. So thanks for spending some time with us. And you know, Matt and I are going to exercise our emotional intelligence right now and recognize that we're at that 20-minute mark, and this is where we start getting our diminishing returns. So we'll be back with you next week. We're going to be starting down our path of growing our emotional intelligence, some practical steps we can apply and you can think about to help you develop that other orientation versus your self-orientation. And a little homework for you between now and next week. Start noticing others and noticing where they are, noticing their mindset, trying to understand where they are in their day, trying to understand what they might be going through. Because the more we connect with others, the greater our emotional intelligence can grow. So, ready?
Sounds good. Yep.
All right. Thank you all for being with us. We look forward to being with you next week and working on our emotional intelligence together. As always, have a great week and God bless.